Laura Engel is on Fox Top Story, live outside the courthouse in New York City. Have they broken up for today? Have we learned anything new?
We have learned a lot new, and they are still going inside federal court right now. The federal judge in this case ordered Michael Cohen to be here in person to answer questions directly related to who his clients are. She wanted to know how many he had and exactly who they were. Now, Cohen's legal team complied and named names this morning, sort of, in a court filing as requested. Submitting a short list of 3 names: President Trump, GOP fundraiser Elliot Broidy, and a third person that they did not identify at today's court filing. Now, in today's proceedings that are underway right now, Stephen Ryan, one of Cohen's attorneys, was asked by the judge to specifically name the other name because they said it would not fall under attorney-client privilege to withhold that name. And he stood up and named him as Sean Hannity. So moving on to the rest of what's happening today, there has been a good deal of back and forth filings over this issue since last night. Both Cohen and lawyers for President Trump asked the judge if their teams could review the seized evidence before prosecutors do. But earlier this morning, Cohen seemed to change his tune and adjusted his request to ask for a third party, or what's known as a special master, to be appointed by the court to review the records seized. Mr. Trump's team still wants their own people to review the documents themselves. And a short while ago, the U.S. Attorney's Office responded, submitting another letter to the court, which says that the proposal offered by Mr. Trump's legal team, that they would be the first to screen the documents for attorney-client privilege, would set a dangerous precedent, adding that such a rule is unworkable and ripe for abuse. Shep.
Hey, Stormy Daniels also in court there, but not a party to these proceedings. Did she get to participate in any way, or did her lawyer?
Well, she's participating in the sense that she's here and she wants to be seen. There was a huge scrum of photographers when she showed up today. As she arrived, people were jockeying for position and some people were tripping over each other to get the shot to get her in. Her attorney, Michael Avenatti, is here as well. And he has said that Daniels is here today to make sure that all of the information regarding her dealings with Cohen are made public. Listen.
I think her message has been consistent, and that is she wants everybody to tell the truth and stop lying to the American people.
And you can probably see behind me, we've got a huge pool of reporters and photographers out here waiting to see who will come out and speak. The court proceedings are still underway. Shep.
Laura, thanks. Let's turn to Bob Bianchi now, defense attorney and former prosecutor. There is a sort of and we'll get to the other part that I'm sure you're curious about in a minute when I have a little bit more information. First, though, there's a procedure for things like this. Like if there's one kind of legal activity that's underway and been underway, and then someone kind of involved with that comes up as a separate matter, they want to separate the two things so that the wrong people don't get the right stuff, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Right, and how would you describe that legally speaking?
Well, it's what we call putting up a Chinese wall, is an old euphemism, or the taint team that's going out there that's basically saying we want to make sure that this information that may not be relevant to the investigation does not bleed into or is released to the public inappropriately.
So it's as if they came, let's say they came to your house, and in your personal notes, you have stuff about 50 different people. Right. But only one of those is pertinent to an investigation that's underway, sort of ancillary to you, right? They wouldn't be able to get all of that, these investigators on the big case. They would just get the part that was pertinent to them. So if your daughter told you something about going on with a boyfriend or something maybe sort of serious in your life but had nothing to do with the other, they'd never see it. And that's what the president says he's trying to ensure, that it gets separated.
Yeah, but see, in any investigation, like I've executed search warrants and authorized them on lawyers' offices in very similar context to this. You don't get as a target or of a person that holds the communication the ability to be involved in the secrecy of the grand jury proceedings. This is a grand jury subpoena. Now, if something inappropriate has been done, that is something for a court to determine down the road, but not right now. And moreover, Shep, you don't do that because you don't want to taint the investigation and tip off where the grand jury is going with respect to the investigation. What makes me laugh about this, and I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
It's an attorney-client privilege, and I hold that very dear. But they went to a court, and the court understood that it was an attorney. They presented enough facts and probable cause where that court already judicially reviewed what it was they were going to be taken and said, we're making sure with an attorney-client privilege, that you highly scrutinize this with your taint team to ensure client confidentialities are not breached. What would we do, Shep, if every defendant or every target or every person had the opportunity to be able to review the information prior to the investigation?
This isn't just every target. This is the President of the United States. That said, there was a higher bar for getting into that lawyer's office in the first place because this was the President of the United States. So as this goes, those who were seeking all of this information from Michael Cohen's home, from his apartment, from his office, those who were seeking that had to convince a judge, if you don't let us go in there in a no-knock raid and go in and just take it all, there's reason to believe they're going to hide it from us and we're never going to know the truth, or the judge would never have allowed this in the first place.
Absolutely. And I know that everybody wants to look at this in a partisan way. And you know me, Shep, I try to do it straight down the line in terms of legality. They believed that there was the potential of destruction of evidence, and they convinced the judge of that. And after having convinced the judge of that, the judge said, okay, I'm going to issue this warrant. There's your judicial review. But you're going to use a heightened level of scrutiny to make sure that the attorney-client privileges of other people that are unrelated to the investigation are not breached here. This is not something that isn't done all the time.
So, based on what you know about what's happening and what's happening inside this courthouse today, one of two things is going to, well, I guess one of three. Either they'll say, don't look at any of it until we have let Mr. Trump and his team look over it, or let the taint team do its work, or some combination of the two. What would be your prediction?
I think that they would be would know that was setting bad precedent by doing things differently than they do it in every case with the taint team. The taint team is there for this very reason. And if you make an exception for President Trump or Mr. Cohen, then you have to be able to say down the road that this is the way it's going to go for all cases, because the justice system doesn't recognize, Shep, a difference between the President of the United States or somebody in a menial job. Each one has the same constitutional rights. So I think they'd be setting bad precedent if they did it any differently than the FBI typically does it. And you know, Shep, I got this last point. This was a no-brainer. You have to be blind for many, many months. And when the Stormy Daniels thing happened and Michael Cohen made the comments that he made that Trump did not, as a lawyer, know about the agreement, and Trump then confirmed that on the airline. I mean, I sat there as a former prosecutor making the decisions and saying, just like it did when the obstruction file opened after the Lester Holt interview, this is going to lead to a search warrant of Michael Cohen's office. And we now learn not only was that true for Stormy Daniels in that scenario, not only will that also vitiate probably the agreement, it made no sense to me tactically, legally, why they did that. They put Michael Cohen in great risk. But we now know over personal financial business dealings for many months, they have been looking into this. And why? People will say it's a vendetta, but no, it's because banks started triggering warnings and notifications down to Washington, D.C., as they're supposed to with anybody, that money's moving here in a very odd way. That's what initiated. This is all the result of them speaking, which they shouldn't do, and actions that anybody would know is going to tip off the federal authorities something odd is happening, hence the bank fraud, wire fraud, and potential tax evasion issues.
It's interesting to learn the legalities of all of this stuff. Some things probably most of us, including me, never would have thought about.
Right.
Bob, it's nice to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shep.
Of course, for us, the elephant in the room at the moment is that Sean Hannity is said to have, according to court documents, been a third client of Michael Cohen. Statement at the Hollywood Reporter supposedly from Hannity that says, you know, we've been friends a long time. He did some legal work for me. Hannity's producers are working to contact him. Since it's now part of the story, we'll report on it when we know the rest.